Right now, I'm reading this particular book, which is Understanding Michael Porter. And Michael Porter is this amazing business theorist, educationist, and teacher. And he has really broken down strategy to its core and fundamentals, right? So he's actually been the person who's, you know, building the foundations on which you can start a new business, or which you can compete in your industry, on which you can start a new industry, for that matter. And that's the beauty of it, that his work is so deep and insightful that not a lot of people unfortunately know about him. And I'm just like about one third or maybe one fourth there with the book, so I don't have the entire thing. But already it has opened up my mind to so many things, uh, about business and about entrepreneurship and about strategy, right? So let me read out certain things from this, and then I'll discuss it. The essence of strategy, Porter often says, is choosing what not to do. You might want to read that last sentence a second time, because it probably accounts for more failures of strategy than any other cause. I'll read it again. The essence of strategy is choosing what not to do. So Porter says that uh, you, as a business owner, cannot just keep copying other people or other businesses around you, or the other businesses that you look as your competition, right? If you keep doing the same things as other people, then it becomes a zero sum game. That means that uh, they so suppose, an example that he gave, and which I agree. So two airlines in US are literally exactly the same, and they're giving this same exact thing, but one of them starts giving out food to their customers, right? So just to kind of increase their margins and everything. Now the other airline, if they also start giving food, then the overall value proposition for both of them again becomes same. And what that does is it reduces any kind of profit that either of them could make, right? So that thing that you need to really decide what are the things that you would not do, and accordingly build your business. That's what differentiates you in the long run, right? If otherwise it just you become commodity, like for the customer, every business in that particular industry or in that particular thing that they need it for becomes moot. Everyone is same, everyone is literally exactly the same, and that causes a big problem, right? So that's what Porter says, and it's beautiful that strategy is choosing what not to do. So um, now he's also the person who's given the five forces model to understand industries and then businesses. So yeah, so he's really popular, and his work is really insightful. So yeah, another one. Porter took a different path, creating what he calls frameworks. In his own words, my frameworks provide a set of logical relationships that are really fundamental. They're like physics. If you're going to have higher profitability, you've got to have a higher price or a lower cost. That industry competition is driven by the five forces. That the firm is a collection of activities. The firm is collection of activities. These frameworks provide basic, fundamental, and I believe unchangeable relationships about the matter of competition. So, Porter says that again, um, his frameworks, especially the five forces and other things that he's talked about and teaches, are essentially the fundamentals that allow you to think about a situation, an industry, in a better way, right? So you can understand the relationships that work upon each other and how they kind of relate to each other and what outcome they create eventually. And I agree with him. It is just like physics, because in physics there are so many variables around you, right? In physics there are so many variables around you, and then you have to reduce it down. You use something called reductionism. You reduce it down, or abstractionism, which is where you abstract it completely. Say, we talk about the ideal world in physics, which is, in an ideal world, how do we kind of reduce it down and bring it to a point where it's easier, right, to understand. So, for example, when you would learn motion, you would not be taking everything into account in the beginning, right? You don't take friction into account. We say that it's like a completely uh, slippery floor, right? So there is no friction, there is frictionless floor, and we kind of understand motion from there, and then we introduce friction later on, and then slowly we add on more variables as and when we understand more concepts, right? So similarly over here, what Porter is saying is that definitely there are so many different variables in the world, and you cannot just rely on one particular thing to give you all the answers. But what his frameworks do is essentially abstract all of the different variables, give the baseline, the fundamental, the foundational elements. You understand a couple of things, the industry from there, and then you build upon it. So you bring in another variable from there, right? So I'm going to read out the five forces as well to you, and then we're gonna, then I'm just gonna give you more examples. So, although I haven't yet come to the five forces part, but so how the book is aligned is they're talking first about competition, and then they come down to strategy and all of those things. The reason is very cleverly put, which is, without competition you would not need a strategy, right? The whole idea of a strategy is so that you become different, so that you become you make more money or have a more solid foundational business. So if you're just doing the same things as the others, or there are other people doing similar things as you, then and only then you need strategy. So over here, the key to competitive success for businesses and non-profits alike lies in an organization's ability to create unique value. And this is, I wholeheartedly agree with this. I'll read it again, once again. The key to competitive success for businesses and non-profits alike lies in an organization's ability to create unique value. Porter's prescription: aim to be unique, not the best. Creating value, not beating rivals, is at the heart of competition. So he's essentially reframing the idea of competition that we have. That, hey, like, don't worry about the competition so much. You need to understand. You need to understand what other people are doing and learn from them. But then the whole idea of a competition is that you give more value to the customers that you work with or want to serve, right? So you essentially break it down. You essentially create something unique amongst all the competition. You create something unique which aligns with the tastes and one part of the customer segment, and that's what the beauty of his, this thinking, this right mindset is over here. Because competition usually is considered that, hey, like, if you're competing with someone, then it's just going to be a zero sum game. But the moment you flip it, when you flip it this way, where hey, competition just means that we have to be unique in our own way, and the moment you flip it this way, now you are essentially slowly creating unique value, becoming differentiated, becoming a business on its own. And the other business, the other competition, they're doing their own stuff, but then you are coming over here and you're creating new value for a set of customers that would want to buy from you because of that uniqueness, right? So this was really cool for me to, again, I knew it these are things that are counterintuitive, because we've been kind of brainwashed that, hey, competition is always bad. And also the examples that we take, that sports examples, and I don't know, like, what other examples, but sport examples are things that, hey, like, this is where competition is, right? And in sport only one person can win, and that's why that analogy, that metaphor, is not the right one for business, or even for wars. You can only one person, one nation, one army can win the war, which is again not the right thing over here. Because no one business will win, right? There is no concept of winning as such, right? Everyone just runs, everyone just, sometimes it's bigger profits, bigger revenue, and so on and so forth, but it does not mean that you won, right? It's a continuous process. Simon Sinek also says that this is an infinite game. Again, these are things that interrelate with each other, and that's what the beauty is, that everything is interrelated. Simon Sinek talks about the same thing, that there are zero sum games and then there are infinite games. Zero sum games is when you're trying to compete in this mindset where, we have to copy everything that the competitor is doing. We have to just keep, reducing the prices down, so that we acquire more customers and so on. But on the other side, infinite games are understanding that there is no end. There is no end, right? So no one really wins over here in business. And so, what that means is, sometimes some people will create new value, sometimes some people will create new value, right? So, uh, he gives a really cool story, which is, there was a time when he noticed that Microsoft and Apple. So Simon says that, hey, I went to speak to the Microsoft guys, and I told them that, you know uh, I have this new project, new product from Apple, and have you seen it, and so on. And this was the iPod, apparently. And the moment he talked about this, the Microsoft guys essentially became berserk. They went berserk. They were like, "What is this product? Tell us about it, and we need to create something of ourselves." And when he went the next time, he got, I think, Microsoft Zune or something like that. They gave it to him to try, right? And on the other side, when he went to Apple, and when he said that, hey, the Microsoft guys just copied you, this is their product, Zune, and so on. And the Microsoft executives, they were like, calmly they said, sorry, the Apple executives, sorry, the Apple executives calmly just said, oh, nice, great. So yeah, and that's kind of it. And Simon was like, wow, this is such a completely different reaction, and I was not expecting this. And he came to understand, and how he related it to this particular concept of infinite games was, Apple understood that the business they are in, there will be some things that other people do better or nicely, and there are some things that we would do better or nicely or differently. And so they don't rush behind copying other people. They focus on what they can do really well, and yeah, they create unique value because of that. So that was really cool when I read it in this particular book as well, which is Understanding Michael Porter. I'll share the link. The links of the books are always there in in the description. So I'll share that link so that you can go and buy it. And of course, I may get like a small percentage out of it if it works out. How you think about competition will define the choices you make about how you're going to compete. It will impact your ability to assess those choices critically. That is why, before we can even begin to talk about strategy, we need to tackle the question of competition and competitive advantage. So, again, he's saying that uh, how you think about competition will define the choices you make about how you're going to compete. All right. So that's why he's like starting with this, that I, even before I start talking about strategy and all of these things, the five forces and stuff, I need to first explain to you what competition is and kind of change your mindset about it. Because based on that mindset, only with that kind of preconceived notion, only then you kind of go forward and actually are able to figure out how you're going to compete. So uh, that's why, before we can even begin to talk about strategy, we need to tackle the question of competition and competitive advantage. Again, I found this really uh, important because uh, we usually don't think so deeply about it. We just think that we need to rush into strategy, but there are preconceived notions, and there are things that are there at the back of our heads, but we haven't really portrayed them or put it on paper, right? So example, when we create strategy and the way we think about competition is win lose kind of a situation, then automatically we'll try to copy someone else and do the same things but at a cheaper cost, or sorry, at a cheaper price or similar things, right? So that's not really strategy. But the moment you think about it, hey, like competition is about creating unique value. The moment you understand that, now you can understand what all the other people are doing and then create a new mix of products that caters to a different set of audience or customers. Next, in business, multiple winners can thrive and coexist. Competition focuses more on meeting customer needs than on demolishing rivals. In business, multiple winners can thrive and coexist. Competition focuses more on meeting customer needs than on demolishing rivals. Just look around. Because there are so many needs to serve, there are many ways to win. Again, the same thing. I'm coming back to the same things because it is so fundamental, because it is so important, because it is, really eye opening at that in its own way. If rivals all pursue the one best way to compete, they will find themselves on collision course, right? Collision courses, again, same thing, that they're doing the same things and they're gonna hit each other. Everyone in the industry will listen to the same advice and follow the same prescription. Companies will benchmark each other's practices and products. Competing to be the best leads inevitably to a destructive zero sum competition that no one can win. As offerings converge, gain from one becomes loss for the other. This is the very essence of zero sum. I win only if you lose. Right? So, again, competing to be the best, which is the usual thinking that, hey, I need to become the best in this particular industry or in this particular business, that is wrong. Because the moment you start pushing yourself to be the best, compared to other people, it's a zero sum game. It's the same sports analogy coming back again. But that's not what we need to do. We need to become best in what we do, the uniqueness that we create, and that's where the actual value is. And that's why he's saying that the moment we go for competing to be the best, it leads to destructive zero sum competition, right? And what we need to create is positive sum competition, where each one of us creates new value for the customer, and then we can charge more because of that, right? Now, not everyone understands this, all right? So this is again something that you need to understand, that not everyone would really understand this. So whatever new value that you create may, and there's a really good chance that if your idea, your product is working, then other people will copy it, right? Because it's you've proven the concept, and so other people can copy it and run off with it. So you have to protect your work as well, which is equally important. So understanding all of this is really key, because you can't be naive about it as well. So you have to protect it. You have to make sure that whatever you're doing it differently, and yet you're protecting it from other people. And at the same time, you should not be surprised when other people or your competitions start doing the same thing as you, because that's the nature, that's the fundamental flaw in our thinking as a society. So you need to understand that just because of this video or just because of Porter's work, you're now able to think of competition in a different way, and so you're able to approach business in a different way. But other people may not think the same. They may not have the same mindset. They might just have, they might just think that, hey, I need to copy this and to go forward with it. So, yeah, so please understand that it is important, but not everyone kind of takes it to heart, and or they might just not know. Now, Porter offers a more nuanced and complex view of what actually happens when companies compete to be the best. Customers may benefit from low prices as rivals imitate and match each other's offerings, but they may also be forced to sacrifice choice. When an industry converges around a standard offering, the average customer may fare well, but remember that averages are made up of some customers who want more and some who want less. There will be individuals in both groups who will not be well served by the average, right? So there will be individuals in both groups who will not be well served by the average. So this is something that that forms the basis. Competition to be unique reflects a different mindset and different way of thinking about the nature of competition. Here, companies pursue distinctive ways of competing aimed at serving different sets of needs and customers. The focus, in other words, is on creating superior value for the chosen customers. Right? So, again, coming back to the same thing, and this is in written form now. The focus, in other words, is on creating superior value for the chosen customers and not imitating and matching rivals. That is what real competition or competing to be unique is about. Here, because customers have real choices, price is only one competitive variable. Some competitors such as Vanguard or IKEA will have strategies emphasizing low prices. Others such as BMW, Apple, or Four Seasons will command a premium price by offering different features or service levels. Customers will pay more or less depending on how they perceive the value that's offered to them. The value is ultimately defined by customers, and so that is the beauty of this, right? That is the beauty of it, that you need to create unique value, have that startup mindset, and only then it kind of comes forward. Now, next he goes into the five forces, or rather the author goes into it. The author is not Michael Porter over here. She's been a student of Michael Porter, and she wanted to really, simplify his work and put a concise way to write it. And that's why this book is beautiful, because it's really accessible. A lot of Porter's work that I've tried to read earlier was not, it was not very readable for me particularly, or at least at that time it was not. So maybe I'll go back to it someday. But yeah, it's just this book is very accessible, very easy to understand, simple language, good examples, and so on. Like pretty recent examples in that way, and so it's good. So you should definitely try it. Now she talks about five forces, so which is what Porter is really famous for, and I'm just gonna give you the list of it, what all they are. So the five forces that Porter says are um, this is to understand the industry. All right. So is the to understand the industry, the five forces are: the threat of new entrants, how easy or difficult it is for new entrants to join in; the bargaining power of buyers, right? So how easily buyers can you know put the price down. So whatever you quote, you how easy is it for them to put the price down? Threat of substitute products or services. How easy again is it for buyers to choose between other products and services which are substitutes for the same thing? So, for example, for travel, from in order to go from place A to place B, I may have three different options, right? I can take a plane, I can take a train, or I can take my car. So then I have to understand what are the prices for the other modes of transportation as well, in order to keep my prices at the same level, right? So otherwise it won't be feasible, because as a buyer, as a customer, I will think of my problem and not about the industry overall. Then power of suppliers. Bargaining power of suppliers is again the same. If the suppliers, if there are certain parts that are coming from suppliers which are really unique, then of course they can charge higher prices to you, and that raises the cost of your offering, right? So it raises the cost of your offering. And finally, rivalry among existing competitors. Rivalry among existing competitors is the same thing that are they kind of, you know, running on price wars, or are they heavily differentiated from each other, and so on. So if they are all doing the same thing, offering the same thing, then of course the prices are going to be low and the margins are going to be thin. But if they are highly differentiated, then each one can grow individually, and the industry overall grows because of that. So that's the idea uh, behind the five forces. These are the five forces overall. Uh, so yeah, there are a lot of other things, like for example, note that if an industry doesn't create much value for its customers, prices will barely cover costs. If the industry creates a lot of value, then structure becomes critical in understanding who gets to capture it. Industries can and often do create a lot of value for their customers or suppliers, while the companies themselves earn very little for their effort. All right. So all of this happens. For example, if you take airlines, right? So airlines, until Southwest came about, or in India, Indigo came about, every airline was offering the same thing. You know, similar pricing, and there were like a lot of buyers, and so the buyers could choose which of, like there it was easy to switch costs, and sorry, the switching costs were very minimal, and so the buyers could easily choose, right? And uh, of course they also had really strong substitutes, which is car or train and so on. So that's the buyer had good amount of power on the industry, on the airline industry, and at the same time the supplier of that industry were really strong, because there would just be one or two or maximum three people making airplanes, right? Boeing and Airbus are the two that I know of. So if there are only two suppliers in the world for what you're trying to do, then they can charge exorbitant amounts. So, and that's what. So most of the value got captured by the suppliers of the airplane rather than the airlines themselves, and that's why they were essentially at they were running uh, in losses most of the times because of this. It was really important, and of course the substitutes and the rivalry, all of that kind of comes together for that particular industry. Now, there are really cool things that this book has. So let me take you through one thing. So Porter has given this list of things to check to understand if the power of suppliers and buyers is strong or not. So, for example, how do you assess the power of suppliers and buyers? I'll give you a list. I'll give you one list, right? So, for both suppliers and buyers, there's one single list through which you can check. Both suppliers and buyers tend to be powerful if they are large and concentrated relative to a fragmented industry. So, for example, if the suppliers in the airline case, it's just two companies that are providing supply of airlines, and that is highly concentrated, right? On the buyer's side, there are millions of buyers, so that's not a problem, and they're like fragmented and stuff. So that is one way to think about it. Second, industry needs them more than they need the industry, right? So for example, this is a tricky one to explain, but yeah, the industry needs them more than they need the industry. So that means they can work across different things, and that creates massive unlock for them. uh, Not able to come up with an example, but yeah, there are places. For example, I'll just read this one out. Doctors and airline pilots are two examples over here, have historically exercised tremendous bargaining power because their skills have been both essential and in short supply, right? So This is again for the airline industry. So doctors and airline pilots have historically exercised tremendous bargaining power because their skills have been both essential and in short supply. The next one, switching costs work in their favor. So switching costs work in their favor as in it can easily, like the buyer can easily go from one vendor to another. And the second thing is, the supplier can also, you know, can also easily switch. For example, this occurs for a supplier when an industry is tied to it. For example, the PC industry has been to Microsoft. It's a dominant supplier of operating systems and software. So, because the switching costs of the industry are so low, the dominant person, which is the supplier, becomes stronger. Okay, so and that's the caveat over here. Differentiation works in their favor when when buyers see little differentiation in the industry's products. They have the power to pit one vendor another against another. Okay, so even differentiation works in their favor. They can credibly threaten to vertically integrate into producing the industry's product itself. So that is again another big thing, that if there is a credible threat to them, right, to vertically integrate. So for example, if I'm a bottler, right, if I produce cans, and I'm a bottler of Coca-Cola, and I have to acquire the cans from some place, then the can manufacturer needs to give me lower prices. Why? Because I am a strong buyer in this case. So, and there is a threat for them to, uh, where they know that because I'm strong, I can vertically integrate. That means I can just, along with my bottling operations, I can also add cans to manufacture them myself, rather than to depend on like a third person to supply it to me. So that's like a credible threat to the supplier, and that's why for them it's not a great. I mean, they can't really have price advantage for me. So these are the list that Porter talks about, which is this is I mean, go through the list and then you can check if your suppliers and buyers in that particular industry are they strong or not, right? So yeah, that kind of is it, which is where I kind of stopped. Um, so I think Porter, I'm yet to read the entire book, but this is beautiful. This is like really cool because his work is really transforming. Just to look at the industry at such depth and understand what's actually going on, and have like a clear thought, really helps you determine if some businesses are worth investing in, or to start a new business, and so on. So it's just a great way to think about different industries and different businesses, and of course to start new things, because you can, you know check in beforehand if it's worth your while, rather than going in it, working in it for a very long time, and then coming back to this realization, and till by then it'll be too late. So that's why this is like really really cool for them. And yeah, if you liked it, I've put the uh, book link in the description, so go ahead, buy this from Amazon US, and you're gonna be really excited for this. Do share, if you've read this book, do share what your best parts were in the comments, and also share which other book that you would like me to read and then share with you, right? So it's going to be really fun reading all of these books. I have like a bunch of them coming up, so I'm going to make a list pretty soon and share them over here as well. Let's see. So yeah, till then, please do subscribe, put your comments in, give it a like, all of those things that you know already, so that the channel grows, I can reach more people, and I also get feedback if this is creating value itself or not. All right, see you in the next one. Bye bye.